The studio lights shine, glowing against the black backdrop, each beam passing through the lenses of cameras that carefully observe every movement in the room, reflecting the lights. Elon Musk and Greg Talbot, seated across from each other, are separated only by a glass table, each focused on their conversation like experimental observers. But the atmosphere between them was thick, beyond what words could express. Greg, a seasoned TV host known for his sharp questions and left-leaning stance, wore a neatly tailored gray suit, his hands folded on the table, his smile carrying both warmth and a hint of insincerity. Elon, on the other hand, was reclining in his chair, one leg casually resting over his knee, his face expressionless. He had done hundreds of interviews, but this one felt different. His instinct told him that Greg wouldn't just ask about Tesla, SpaceX, or his latest investments. There was a politeness on the surface, but something else beneath. The theme music of the show ended and a calm narrator's voice took over. This evening, billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk meets with Greg Talbot for an exclusive conversation. No topic is off limits. Stay tuned for a conversation you won't forget. The red recording light flickered on. Greg adjusted his tie and turned toward the camera. Welcome back to the Talbot Report. Tonight we have a guest who needs no introduction. He's redefined the automotive industry, sent rockets to space, and is currently at the center of countless debates. Elon Musk, thank you for joining us. Elon gave a slight nod. Thank you, he replied. His voice was calm, his posture relaxed, yet his eyes were sharply focused on Greg, as if trying to solve an equation, searching for the right answers. Without wasting time, Greg dove straight in. Let's start with something. With a familiar smile, he asked, Twitter, or should I say X? Many say the platform has undergone major changes under your leadership. Some view it as a positive change, others argue the opposite. Elon offered a slight smile. It depends who you ask. If you ask those who value free speech, they'll say it's improved. But for those who prefer censorship, they'd say it's worse. Greg raised an eyebrow. Censorship? That's quite a strong word, isn't it? It's the right word, Elon replied. Greg paused for a few seconds, then shifted the topic. But still, you must agree that freedom doesn't mean allowing hatred to spread unchecked. Elon took a deep breath through his nose, already understanding where this was going. What you call hate speech might be a strong opinion for someone else. The problem is who decides? A few unelected validators? Greg smiled, but his eyes hid the meaning behind his smile. So do you regret changing the platform you manage? Not really, Elon answered easily. Of course I've made mistakes, but I don't regret it. When I bought Twitter, it was dead. Now people actually use it. Greg slowly nodded and moved on. Interesting, but let's move on. The conversation shifted to Tesla's latest innovations, Neuralink's goals, and Elon's thoughts on AI regulations. But something had changed. Greg's tone was different from the questions he was used to asking. His approach felt like a tactic. The hardness was subtle, but it was felt. Then, there was a slight shift in Greg's posture. Small, almost imperceptible, but Elon noticed. The host leaned slightly forward, fingers intertwined. His words now carried a more serious tone. You've built an empire, Elon. No doubt about that. But great power requires great control. Elon blinked, remaining unresponsive. That's how it works, yes. Greg tilted his head slightly. Then let's talk about that control. There was a sense that the real conversation was about to begin. Greg kept his smile, fixing his eyes on Elon. After reading a few lines from his notes, he looked up and made eye contact. Elon, you've always had a reputation for pushing boundaries. People admire that. But some say you push them too far sometimes. Elon, not moving an inch, responded, quietly. Progress requires risk. Greg slowly nodded in agreement. Sure, but let's talk about accountability. For a moment he turned toward the camera, dramatically saying, Your leadership style has been described as both brilliant and dangerous. Employees at Tesla and SpaceX have talked about extreme deadlines, exhausting hours, and a culture of fear. Is that true? He added. Are they lying? Elon took a deep breath and answered calmly. I expect high performance. We're not running a coffee shop here. We're making rockets and artificial intelligence, not burgers. I don't force anyone to work here. They choose to because they believe in what we're doing." Greg raised his eyebrows slightly and shifted the topic. "Good point. But what about the rumors of those employees questioning your decisions and getting fired the next day?" Elon shrugged. "If someone isn't aligned with the mission, they shouldn't be here. Just because someone has been here for a long time doesn't mean they're entitled to a job." Greg took a deep breath and paused, then began to formulate his next question. This time, it was going to be a deeper topic. "What about AI?" A slight change in Elon's eyes was noticeable, but it didn't show on his face. "You've warned repeatedly that AI is an existential threat, but at the same time you're developing AI through XAI, Neuralink, and Tesla's autonomous technologies. Doesn't that seem contradictory?" With a half smile, Elon responded, "If you're afraid of a flood, do you wait for the rain, or do you start building better dams?" Greg paused for a moment, digesting the analogy, then asked, "Do you think the only way to control AI is by protecting people from it?" Elon kept his smile and replied, "Yes, if the wrong people control it, we're really in trouble." Greg focused intently and asked, "Who are these wrong people?" Elon kept his gaze steady as he answered, "Governments that prioritize control over innovation, tech companies that don't value ethics over profit, media that manipulate stories instead of informing the public." Greg smiled slightly and nodded. "So everyone except you?" Elon's expression remained unchanged, but his fingers twitched slightly on the armrests of the chair. Greg's smile grew wider. "Interesting perspective, but here's the thing. People see you as the last freedom fighter, the last honest billionaire. But you're also one of the most powerful people. Doesn't that make you the very thing you're trying to fight against?" Elon took a deep breath through his nose and kept his gaze steady. "Power is not the problem. It's who holds it and what they use it for." Greg nodded, lost in thought for a moment. But that brief pause quickly passed. He moved on to another question, this time more strategic. "What about your connections?" Something seemed to pass through Elon's eyes. Greg continued, "You've been seen at private events with world leaders, controversial billionaires, and government officials from many countries. Some of them aren't exactly known for being human rights friendly." He tilted his head slightly. "So, should people trust you, especially someone who might be playing both sides?" Elon leaned slightly forward, his voice slowed. "Just because you know someone doesn't mean you agree with them. If it leads to progress, I'll talk to anyone." Greg listened carefully to Elon's answer and fell silent for a moment. His eyes seemed to be delving a little deeper. "So for you, is it all about technology and progress? Isn't there a price to pay for everything?" he asked. After a few seconds of silence, Elon smiled slightly. "Everything has a price," he said. "But if technology has the power to shape a person or a society's future, then paying that price is often necessary. Moving forward sometimes requires taking a step back. But if those steps can make the world a better place, then I believe we must take them." Greg was about to ask a deeper question, but Elon's demeanor showed that he was answering every word with great care. "But humanity is advancing so quickly, yet people still seem to not learn from their past mistakes. How useful can technological development be for humanity? Or could this progress one day lead to our destruction?" Elon paused for a while. This was a topic he had often pondered, and one that carried a great responsibility to answer. Technology, in the right hands, is incredibly beneficial. But if we humans fail to use this power properly, yes, this progress could harm us. My goal is to make people more conscious and to use this technology for the right purposes. The power of artificial intelligence, yes, is huge and dangerous. But with the right supervision and guidance, we can prevent it from going astray. Greg relaxed a little after Elon's answer, but there was still one more question lingering, one that was worth asking. "But Elon, sometimes your approach, especially in the business world, can be very ruthless. For example, the process of firing employees or the strict rules you impose for your projects. How humane is that really? Isn't technology supposed to be for improving people's lives?" Elon took a deep breath and responded, My goal is to bring true innovation, not just in business, but in every field. And innovation can sometimes be challenging, but that doesn't mean I devalue people. Everyone who works at Tesla or SpaceX comes here because they believe in these projects. If someone isn't aligned with our speed or vision, it's best for them to part ways, but this doesn't mean we are demeaning anyone. What we do isn't ordinary work. This is something that changes lives. Greg nodded, trying to process what Elon had just said. I understand. But still, as humanity advances, we must not forget that not only technology but also ethical values should evolve. At every step, we must protect human values along with technology. Elon squinted his eyes, thinking for a moment, and then said, Absolutely. Human values should come before technology. But in order to protect those values, we also need the right tools. Technology is just a tool. It is our responsibility to use that tool properly. Greg decided to ask one final question. This question might be the most challenging one of the entire conversation. What about your personal life? With all these big projects and goals, do you find time for yourself? Or maybe in all this hustle, has there ever been a time when you forgot what it really means to be human? Elon paused briefly, his eyes gazing into the distance as he began to respond. Sometimes things get so hectic that my personal life falls behind. But from time to time, I try to take a step back and spend some real time with myself. The time I spend with my family and close friends always reminds me of everything. Being human is far deeper than just meeting technology, but balancing this is hard. My current life is entirely shaped around a mission and a purpose. Greg, before ending the conversation, gave Elon one last look. And in the end, how will achieving these big goals change your life? When will you stop? Or do you never plan to stop? Elon smiled slightly, but this time his smile reflected deeper thoughts. My goals seem endless because every new thing opens the door to a bigger one. But maybe one day I'll stop. Maybe one day I'll just enjoy life. But until that day comes, I want to do everything. The further I go on this journey, the more I learn, and the more I can contribute to humanity. Greg closed his notes and turned to the camera. It will be exciting to watch this all unfold. Elon, thank you for taking the time to share this conversation with us. Elon nodded slightly and said, Thank you. This was an important conversation. The camera stopped. The lights began to fade, and the atmosphere in the room shifted to a silence that echoed only the thoughts of two people and their ideas.